last year or so, you came and visited me about the VA, because they have like 12 different.
Oh man,
or is it more? It's more than that. They have all these apps and shit.
Yeah, I've been looking into the defense industry. Eric and I have been looking into getting back into defense because I mean, we basically did work for Lockheed Martin. It went great, but then we just kind of got into this like other industries because like we just made some products that did well, and we got into real estate, and we got into just like general automation, and just kind of put the whole defense industry, which God needs a lot of help, on the back burner. But then like I think 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, before COVID, I went to. By the way, we're all vaccinated. Just to be clear. Went to Nashville to this kind of defense, not a trade show. It was basically like. It was a bunch of companies who were there, and VA was there, and they were basically trying to engage the small business community in making stuff for the government.
Yeah.
And VA was there, like they're a big part of it because they, VA spends a lot of their budget on veteran-owned small businesses. Like a lot of people don't realize the VA, but they take care of like veterans in all kinds of ways that people don't realize. But almost like half, like billions of dollars get sent to basically veteran-owned small businesses, which. There's not that many of them. Yeah, it's kind of because you have to be like over 51% veteran-owned to be a veteran-owned small business. And it's kind of hard to grow a company like holding on to that much equity.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so when I was there, they're talking about like because I kind of been specializing in DevOps for the last 4 years, and they're basically saying, hey, we have 750, which by the way I heard recently it's now like 1,200 applications, like separate programs, separate software pieces, like one for I don't know. Setting your appointment, another one for, registering as a small business. They have like over 1,000 of them, and they kind of like are trying to do the best to manage them. But it's going to be really hard to do unless you get people like me who do this for, Apple, Apple Pay or whatever to come in there and actually solve these problems. And I guess, I don't know if they pay more now, but anyway, so I learned a lot at that meeting, basically, that all the problems that existed when I was in are still there.
But it goes back to the requirement writing, I would say, maybe or shitty requirements and the requirements they don't talk to. Maybe I don't really know much about how the VA
I don't know
operates.
nearly enough to speculate on what it is, but just any organization that's big, that has a lot of different things, builds up technical debt. Yeah. They got massive technical debt, but the VA is actually, like for all the things, like VA is pretty well ran. Like a lot of people, talk about.
All my experience has been good.
I've never had a problem. Well, I've had like appointments get delayed, but like every time I actually went to the VA, it was great. Yeah, I have no complaints about the VA. Plus, they spend a lot of money with small businesses, veteran-owned, so good for them. But anyway, so Nashville. Anyway, so that was just kind of like it's been building up that there's like, well, we need to basically. It's like like in Fallujah they would have this written on all the walls: complacency kills. Yeah, I'm sure they have it written everywhere, basically like to remind the Marine or whatever that hey, like don't forget people are trying to kill you. But that applies to organizations as well, basically.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now and then you got to kick yourself,
like because people get comfortable and they get kind of lazy, and they also definitely don't. The more comfortable they get, the less innovative they get. And the bigger they get, the less innovative they get.
You basically
and then they end up like just becoming a just ineffective.
Well, they end up becoming a bureaucracy. The default state of a bureaucracy is not very competitive. Basically, that's what happens when you just kind of, don't like nobody kicks you now and then and say, hey, like we're still trying to, well, in America's case, maintain some form of supremacy around the world to this day. That's part of the strategy, and. Yeah, we forgot that like this whole we got hacked. Like all the I don't want to talk about hacking, but there's been a lot of hacks in recent history.
No.
Somebody hacked because I'm doing a lot of software now. Like basically somebody, presumably the Russians, hacked not Symantec. The SolarWinds. Thank you. Yeah, and that's we used SolarWinds when I was in the military. Yeah, it's like it's a brilliant hack. Basically, it's smart. Like that's a great place to because it just basically it's like antivirus software that updates everybody's computers. Like the whole yeah. So they got it in there, perfect. And like we took us like 6 months to find out. Like when we found out, like actually they were here like 6 months ago, but why is that? Like
why's what?
Like why? I don't know. Why are people hacking America? How do we make them stop?
Why would you not?
What can we do to disincentivize people from doing that?
No,
and we can't just drop bombs. It doesn't work.
No, I mean they're gonna. That's just part of it. There's, I mean, like, what are you trying to really protect, or what are your goals, your end goals, tactically, or in, I guess, geopolitically?
Mattis's book that I just read. In there, he said like a number of times, like, you know, I did my job best I could, but the one problem I always had is my bosses, you know, the government, the president, or whatever, would never really tell me what the objective is. Like even like when they like invaded like Iraq, it wasn't when do we like. They wasn't clear like how far they're going to go in. Like we're going to Baghdad, or are we stopping? Like,
what is the win? What is winning? You know?
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, I think there was some documentary I watched. I think it was maybe in a Frontline or something. It was like this is what winning looks like or something.
Oh, that sounds so familiar.
It was pretty depressing.
Vice. That was Vice. That was Ukraine. That was a Ukraine conflict, I think. Vice.
Oh,
had a thing.
Okay. I mean, I think it could apply to like pretty much any military conflict. Yes. It's like what are you actually trying to do?
Oh, yeah. Or business problem. Like I do that like at least once per day. I'm in a meeting with some people making software. I'm always like, hold on, let's redefine or redeclare what we're trying to accomplish here, because it's too easy to go down the rabbit hole. You got to go back and refocus yourself on what the thing we're trying to accomplish, the business objective or the problem we're trying to fix or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yesterday we took this drone out.
Yeah.
And so we invested a little bit of money into R&D over the last few months. Bob even got a drone pilot license, right? Mm-hmm. Basically trying to see what kind of application. Like, well, we started with drones because it's kind of unclear. Well, because drones are.
It's a great platform.
It's a great platform, but it's also like, yeah, exactly. It's like underdeveloped industry still. Like Amazon's barely delivering things. Like nobody's really quite figured out how drones.
It's not mastered. Yeah. I mean. And so
we're talking for like commercial purposes, not for like just having a good time, but like the commercial and tactical military police applications of drones.
Yeah, and so
a lot of them.
That was basically
the first problem is they're all Chinese. So you have to deal with this like software problem, because like we can't. That thing is a closed box.
Oh, he has a lockbox. I mean, and he done very well as far as spare parts and everything.
Which
like
is
that.
smart of them. I mean, DJI is
they
not
stole
stupid.
That from
they're
Apple.
doing it for a reason. They're doing just like the same thing Apple does.
Playbook.
Yep.
So I mean, I started researching.
My point was the DoD probably doesn't use those because, for obvious reasons, you don't want to have your sole supplier be somewhere that's not in the U.S. That's why we're still making. What is that? I just read somewhere. What are those big aircraft carriers? We're still making aircraft carriers because if we stop making them, all the people who know how to make aircraft carriers will basically disperse and find other jobs. And if we need an aircraft carrier, we're not going to have anybody who makes them. Yeah, so it's like a military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
Working in this case, though.
As far as practical applications for drones, because I was, I guess what I was focused on was looking at like how can we harness the power of drones to do anything. So there's obviously the aerial photography, which we did some of that yesterday, and but I mean one of the things I thought was really impressive was photogrammetry. Using drones to map. And
what is photogrammetry?
So photogrammetry has actually been around since 1860. Basically since the invention of photography. It's using a series of overlapping pictures to make a 3D to obtain 3D dimensional data from a series of pictures. So what the drone does, so it started in 1860, and through the years we had film photography. Back in the day, that's spy satellites, and they could do that. They could take those, as a spy satellite or U2. Yeah, but it took these huge machines that were like the size of this room to overlay that, and then some trigonometry and all that stuff, and then very time consuming and everything like that. But
the computers got faster.
Yeah, and then also metadata in the pictures. So now you have GPS data inside the pictures, and what angle that you're looking at, and you have just great resolution. So what you're able to do with that is to, fly your drone over in 15 minutes, take approximately 4 gigs of data, or a few hundred pictures, and come up with a map that is accurate. Is extremely accurate. I was really impressed with how accurate it was.
It's like, what's it, Google Earth? Which one does the 3D buildings? Is it Google Earth?
It's Google.
So it's like Google Earth, basically. Probably, actually, it's weird.
Closer. Yeah.
I don't know who does like. Why are some buildings in Google Earth like 3-dimensional, but most aren't? Like,
Yeah.
who sits there and like draws a line? Right? Wouldn't you not use photogrammetry for that?
I think it's probably their quality of their data. Because some of the data, like they obviously focus in on certain areas. And I don't know how much they get from Street View, because I think some of it they got to have. It's hard to get the side of a building.
Well, Jamie, Eric, can you,
And
can you pull that data for us, please? Who draws the 3-dimensional buildings on Google Maps?
oh, photogrammetry does. Yeah.
Oh, shadow.
Yeah, that's what photogrammetry does. Like you're taking, like, so you take a corner, you take this picture, and the next picture that's going to be shifted over
Yes,
slightly.
but where does Google have a bunch of Google planes flying around taking pictures of shadows?
Yeah, satellite.
I
Yeah.
thought satellites were too far out to see
No,
shadow.
no. All you see, in as far as I know, but I feel like there has to be some other sources to get the size of the buildings very well. Maybe their satellites may look
It
back
can't
or
be
something.
just be shadows, man. Some of these are really
No,
intricate.
it's every line. You're lining up lines, or like points. Point cloud. You're creating like a point cloud. So like,
I bet it's all contributed by people who like just sit there and look at them and draw them. Because I just don't. It's just like it seems
They might touch
really
'em up.
unfeasible for Google. Because either they be everywhere. Because it's been very selective rollout of like just my
pretty much
anecdotal
every
experience.
major city. If you go on Google Earth now, I mean, like the areas that they seem like they pay a lot more for to get the angles, because the more pictures that you have of that area, because they're not always, it's going to be clouds sometimes, and so I don't know how they pay
So
for.
basically, photogrammetry can be done by a drone or even a satellite. You
Right,
could do
yeah,
it at all
absolutely,
kinds
yeah.
of levels. All right.
Yeah, that's what it's. Oh, yeah, and drones closer, so you're going to pick up details. Like you can pick up details in ditches.
It's also cheaper.
Yeah, a lot cheaper. So one of the things that I did is I kind of mapped my subdivision. I mapped my house, of course, like starting off. I had my house is obscured by trees, so I didn't get good data. But then I flew down and underneath my tree line and flew around the house and tried to take a bunch of overlapping pictures around my house.
Well, you got good at it.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah,
Jamie Eric play that footage of
Yeah.
Bob flying like through the neighborhood yesterday.
Yeah.
We're trying to marry this up with real estate just because it's what we have to work with right now.
well, one of the things with
Pretty
real
awesome.
estate too is so I live in a very hilly area, and it's just very susceptible to flash flooding. And you can have a creek show up in your backyard. Like if you get a good rain, and it can change, like depending on how the volume of rain and everything like that. I met up somebody who was actually driving around the area that I live in. And
No, so you should tell the story. It was like raining outside. It was like
Yeah, it
terrible
was-
weather, and this guy goes out to drive around to test stuff.
I
And he
mean, I
meets
was
somebody else like him driving around the rain to test stuff. It blew my mind. It was like, you guys,
she's running for city council or something like. But she look
the way to do
and so basically these people that lived on this road had like a river, or that's basically a flash flood. But I thought it'd be very useful to. Because one of the things you were looking at is using how do we use drones in the cloud together to do something useful, and so the cloud has unlimited
just the cloud
processing
being
power.
like the rest of the world, basically. When we say in the cloud, that means connected to the rest of the world, so they can leverage things like visual recognition or all those services.
specifically like using
So
something that
people don't know what the
requires a
cloud is.
lot of.
Just want to clarify, the
okay,
cloud is basically just a bunch of computers connected, and they have a bunch of services that you can basically pay for by the minute. Which means like if we have a bunch of photos we're taking, we can run that through Azure Vision, which would tell us which objects it sees in there. Like all that kind of stuff. Like it's like you can't really. I mean, you would basically have to have a really, really big drone to have the world's information on it to be able to process all that kind of stuff. But if you can get the data into the cloud quickly, you can leverage basically all the stuff the commercial private
you
sector
have
has been
unlimited
using
processing power.
for a
Basically,
while, yeah.
You have like a supercomputer at your.
basically, yeah.
You can rent by the
I mean,
minute.
it's difficult to architect it, but like it's a lot easier than like there's no alternative right now, basically, unless like we discover some kind of quantum computing that actually like can be put in a microchip and have like the world's wealth of information on the drone itself. It's best to just get it into the cloud as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Basically, in other words, get it out. Not like the cloud just being like people get hung up on what the cloud is. It just basically means out of the device into the rest of the internet.
Yeah.
Which can obviously be secure. It's not like
No. The photogrammetry does require a fair amount, and that's one of the things is it does require a lot of, it requires very large files or involves very large files. The raw data is about 4 gigs or I mean, it
That's
can be
video,
whatever,
right?
but
I mean, you're basically flying over. You're taking photos. Like, was it like 10 megapixel? Like 8? Like, no, you take
20 megapixels.
Yeah, you take your iPhone. You take like a high quality photo. It's like 4 megabytes or whatever. Like,
Or more. Yeah.
yeah, we're doing that like at twice the resolution.
Like,
and,
I think like
nonstop.
600, over 600 pictures.
So basically, you get a bunch of stuff on the drone, and you can't get it off of there without it having to land, and you have to like physically like plug something in.
Yeah, photogrammetry requires a lot of processing power to do it. I mean, I didn't build the most badass supercomputer that I could have. So, I mean, I spent like $2,000 on the computer to do it. And I think I had like a 12-core processor and like 2,500 GPU or wwhatever, CUDA cores. And it still takes it like 3 hours or something.
Just case in point, what the cloud is, that thing. How much RAM did it have? Just
128 megabytes.
So that computer that he had to build, he had to go to the store, I presume. We can spin that up on Azure or on Google in about 60 seconds. It'll be ready to rock and roll, and we can clone it and have 1,000 of them be available in a few minutes. Like that right there, like is what the cloud is. Being able to basically. Oh, that's it. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah, yeah. We've proposed a race before, or I'll race my computer against your cloud because I think you're gonna have problems getting all that information.
Yeah,
in
but
and
the problem
out.
is you have to get it into the cloud. So like if the cloud is only useful if you get the data in there, and with
Yeah.
video being recorded or photos, like it's a lot of data.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, just the pictures alone. I never tried that as part of the experiment, but I was just trying to do mine. But yeah, the mapping thing, I was able to pick up the ditches, and then I found another simulation software that's basically computational fluid dynamic type thing, and you can simulate flash flooding. And so it'd be very helpful for people if they, you need to make this ditch bigger. Put a berm here, and you can divert your water around your house.
But I mean, just to kind of put it together, like the thing is, drones exist. They've been out for a while. Amazon is using them to I don't think they're actually not in practice because like the thing is, there's all kinds of like details to go into. Like for example, you have to have line of sight. You basically can't just have a drone do its thing. You gotta have a person like watching it do it, which I'm sure is gonna change with time.
You can operate beyond line of sight with a waiver, but they're not really gonna.
I
mean, you got look at that thing.
Does your company have to be called Amazon to get the waiver, or is it just a...
No, you can do it smaller company like utility inspection. Actually, Duke Energy lost a helicopter like 2 days ago, like not very far from here, doing power line inspections. Nobody would have died if that was a drone.
Interesting. Power line inspections use helicopters?
Oh
It
yeah,
seems
but
ridiculously
the
expensive.
problem is range of a drone. Is that you
I
got
think,
like hundreds of miles of.
I think a car and a drone are still cheaper than a helicopter.
No way you can. I'm talking about high transmission lines, like the big ones. They go over some awful they go
so basically
everywhere.
have to. Okay.
Yeah, helicopter's really the best way, but
You
I
need
mean,
a
you can
glider.
do.
The glider. This guy's building a glider.
Yeah, they're inspecting like each one. I mean it, but anyway, beyond line of sight, and also landing. I mean, like think about even those propellers spinning around. If that thing like hits your dog,
The problem is battery, though. Couldn't you
Yeah, battery
theoretically
life.
be able to recharge? Like if this was an
Swap the
infrastructure
battery.
change and we have a drone, basically, we love to innovate around here. I just can't help it. But if you had if your objective is to check power lines, there's power there, right? So you could theoretically have some kind of mounts on these. Whatever those
oh yeah,
things
maybe you
are.
could harvest. I
And
don't
this
know.
thing could just basically recharge itself as it moves down, and bam, we just save a lot of
The
money
you need
and
wings.
lives.
I really think you need wings.
Wings.
Yeah, you need like a tilt rotor thing because you need lift.
That's if you're going far, though. I'm just saying.
You're going far. On
But
power
you're going
lines.
far from one charging station to the next. You could theoretically basically put drone charging stations along the power lines and just have these little drones maintain
Yeah,
them.
that'd be cool. Yeah.
I just saw the future. Anyway,
Yeah.
what were we talking about before? So drones.
Yeah,
Where are we?
practical ways that you can use drones in order to like help people.
Right.
Helping people that are our military, SWAT, SWAT teams. We know previous people that we've worked with in the past that have SWAT, sending in drone like a couple weeks ago.
You should explain
Nashville.
that the Wi-Fi issue, like the building basically we have drawn on the whiteboard of the office right now.
Oh yeah, we never even get.
I don't know if we probably don't have time for that,
No,
but that's
it's-
kind of a basically like one of the things. It's all about connectivity. So basically, if we have these drones flying around, and they already exist, and they have like cameras on them that are amazing. They have computers on them. It's a flying computer, basically, right? But the problem is none of them are connected to the rest of the infrastructure that we have, which is the cloud. Basically, that's it. And once they do, there's going to be that's what I think the world is waiting on, is once those things become connected to the cloud. And like the problems are simple. Like we're just trying to get like, was it 5-minute flight ends up in like a 4 gigabyte file. So basically or give or take, whatever. I mean, we also record in 4K. We could make that less, but point is like you got to be able to get that data off the drone in real time, so people maybe not the pilot, but they can actually see it on one screen. Several drone feeds. So you have to basically get it off the drone. And it's basically a technical challenge.
One of the companies I found does uses LiDAR to map caves and or like mines, like underground mines. Also, cool. LiDAR can see through trees, whereas photogrammetry, that's a limitation of photogrammetry, is that if you're, I've been able to do it because it's been winter and I was able to get, but it really has a hard time processing trees.
Trees are a problem. How expensive is LiDAR?
I'd say probably really going to at least $10,000 for
$10,000 for one little LiDAR?
I mean, I have that $100 one, but that's like one axis. So it's doing like 1 point at a time, and it's measuring all those points.
So for it to be useful, $10,000.
You need to spin it 2 ways, yeah. Actually, a lot of phones have LiDAR.
What's LiDAR?
Laser image data and ranging.
What does it do? Let's end on LiDAR.
It's basically like it's just a rangefinder. So you shoot a light at it, you look for a reflection, and you measure the amount of time that it takes to do that, and you know the distance for that.
Oh, this is actually, really interesting topic, because the alternative is basically taking photos and trying to analyze what's in the photos. This thing actually sees the depth.
LiDAR is making a point cloud based on, as it spins around, it is like, I'm that far from there, I'm that far from there, I'm that far from there, that far from there. And if I move a little bit further, it kind of remembers that last point, and then it goes and continues. And that's just like, it'll be a single axis, but typically you're spinning both axes. But
correct me if I'm wrong, but the thing with LiDAR, like basically over the last like 5 years, our AI of like visual recognition got so, all those like times that Google asks you to like find the stoplights in a picture, all that stuff has been training, the models that basically can tell, like basically don't need LiDAR to understand what's happening around them. And cars kind of have that nowadays. So is LiDAR dead?
No, definitely not. I mean, it's accurate. Yeah.
LiDAR.
I think he doesn't like it. I mean, like for their application, it may be. He said it was too expensive.
What does he like? So he's right, because once again the visual recognition has got so much better over like last 5 years.
I mean,
it might no longer be needed.
I think it still has a place.
So you're a LiDAR. What do you call it?
I mean, it still has a place.
Apologist. LiDAR apologist.
I think it still has a place.
Big LiDAR.
It's a good check and balance, I'd say. I mean, if I was making 1,000 or however many Teslas he makes, then maybe I wouldn't do that, because even if it costs him $100 per vehicle, that adds up real quick. But if I'm
but you can't just swap one technology for the next.
Most of the time, like they work in conjunction with each other. Well, so like if you're looking at like Leica, so they do photogrammetry and LiDAR. So like if you're surveying a thing, it'll do LiDAR and it'll back it up with photogrammetry. And so it combines those 2 points, combines that data, and it makes just
more data
amazing.
Is usually better.
It makes
maybe sometimes good
but
enough.
But you don't need that kind of resolution for driving.
It's always good to establish what good enough is and avoid from going down the rabbit hole. So Bob, all right. So realistically, within the next 6 months to a year, what are the practical applications of drones? That drones like this one, which costs like $4,000-$5,000, right? Like not like cheapo drones, but drones like this that a company could get. What can we? What are you thinking?
Actually, I think that there's a big market for cheapo drones, and that's kind of the direction that I've been pushing in. Is basically having, instead of spending $5,000 on drones, you're spending a lot less, and basically having expendable drones for like SWAT and I mean, there's still a place for the high end drones, for search and rescue and stuff like that, but there's also just a lot of applications to help operators, the people that are on the ground doing stuff.
See, the throwaway thing ties into the cloud, though, because you can only throw it away if the stuff that gathered is off of it and in the cloud. So until we really can connect these things, like Internet of Things can actually include drones, and the data can go outside the drone, they're not going to be thrown away because you need it. My files are on there.
Right.
Innovation only happens when people are like actively thinking about these problems and like, spending late nights, burning the midnight oil, trying to figure out how these like, how do you get a cell phone to become also a repeater so it can be on the drone, so it can have redundancy? Like all that stuff takes time and you have to be thinking about that. So I guess if anything, like we need to start doing that basically, like the country. we need to start doing that more. And drones is just an example of it. But like connecting these things and finding ways of, I mean, this is like a rabbit
making
hole.
them cheaper. Yeah, making them cheaper. Using cheaper technology, but maybe more of it. It can, and have it where it's accessible to these operators that need it. I mean, that's the underlying thing that's been a goal of mine, is like giving people technology that they, without having to go through all this bullshit of like shitty ideas that the bureaucracy of these large entities create. And by providing innovative ideas, inexpensively, then it becomes a no-brainer. And for these people, search and rescue, finding people like with drones and thermal cameras and all that stuff. I mean, like, otherwise they're walking around, like for days, and may not find them. So like, it's just, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of room for high-end technology and low-end technology to help people that need it. That are operators.
Most importantly, the government is like openly saying like we need to do this now.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of reacting to what the government asks us to do. We're just like
the market.
We're just little Marines who are stuck in the mindset of just we gotta get it done
adapt and overcome.
We just gotta exactly do more with less.
And sometimes overcoming, and unfortunately involves overcoming bureaucracy.
Yeah, but then we come across against the bureaucracy. Well, like, well, you told us to do this.
Yeah. But I mean,
but we'll work through it this time.
Yeah.
I think time is right. I think America's got to. Yeah. This is the time for us to basically have the same thing we had in the 70s and the 60s and the 50s. Why not? Might as well. We have all the tech companies are here. All the like software talent is here. Like we could totally like basically have another 50 years of supremacy, which worked out pretty well for the last 50 years.
Well, anyway. Speaking of time, this is. Hope you guys tune in on the next one, and where we'll kind of dive deeper into some of our rabbit holes.
Yeah, hopefully we'll go into some drone footage because like there's a lot of practical application to what we're saying. We're not just saying, we actually test this stuff and do it.
All right, so thanks for watching.
Don't forget to subscribe.